Hello, everyone, and welcome to Greyhammer. We are back with our reptile care guides, and this is a very special first one. It's our first snake ever doing. Apologize if you can hear my dog squeaking his ball in the background. You're probably used to the dog at this point, but I'll do my best to remove noise from the video. Um, so Eastern Garter Snake, really nice, pretty good first snake if you're gonna get one. Um, and part of my series of kind of four snakes that you can maybe convince your wife or husband who isn't so keen on the snakes that, snakes aren't that scary. I love these snakes. They're beautiful. And they have some great color variations. Some natural facts about them. They're native to pretty much the entire eastern United States, spattered across in some areas of Texas. Basically, they just don't go into Maine, though some do go into Canada, but just the western United States, they're not present. And there's other garter snakes that live there with slightly different care, from what I understand. Um, Habitats, they love grasslands, meadows areas, and swamps, also forest edge habitats. They can go 18 to 26 inches, so it won't get much longer than 2 feet long. You'll live around 12 to 15 years, so moderately well lived snake. They're secure. They're not under any threat. That does not mean go catch one and keep it. Keep that to a absolute minimum. Um, they should be captive bred garter snakes, pretty readily available. Enclosure options. So your 3 by 18 by 12 is going to be your absolute minimum enclosure size. Um, Ideally, I think a 4 by 2 by 2 will give you a lot of room to add climbing areas. Even though garter snakes aren't big climbing areas, a rock pile would be a good area for them to be able to hide and climb on top and bask. Um, this will work. One note, I am using the Dubia enclosures. No sponsorship. A paludarium would actually be a great setup for these guys. So something like a Reptizoo or an Exoterra could work as well. If you want to include a water portion to your enclosure, which again, these snakes would do very well with. They do like to swim quite frequently. They're not a water snake, but they do like water. Uh, but these Dubia enclosures don't hold water. I've contacted them about it. Maybe, just maybe, they'll create a paludarium. Um, but as of right now, no. I think it's to keep the costs down, which they definitely do. These are really cheap enclosures. As for the lighting, Reptile Systems Zone 2, 24 inches. You could also use Arcadia Forest or the ZoomEd 5.0, but after Reptile Systems has such great care guides, I was like, let me rep them a little bit, even though I don't have a sponsorship. Also, their packaging just is so nice looking. Um, it's a great option for forest-dwelling reptiles. Garter snakes will prefer UVB and will thrive with it. A lot of people will say snakes don't require UVB. For some, that's definitely true. Garter snakes are a diurnal snake, so you should give them UVB for 8 to 12 hours a day. Replace the bulb every year. But yeah, my thing is if the thing experiences UVB in the wild, you probably should give it to them. $75 price point for these is, for lights, it's expensive, but it's really in line with every other light brand. It's tough to be like, oh, $75 for a 24-inch light, but very necessary. Heating. I picked the ZoomEd Repta Basking Spot lamp. You get the value pack with 2 bulbs and a fixture for $42.48. You want to create a temperature gradient like pretty much everything else. 83 degree Basking temp, ambient temperature 75 to 80, and then night temp of 70 to 75. How are you going to achieve this? You're going to need a thermostat. I did not include it in this PowerPoint, but uh, you can find a reptile thermostat, no problem. They're not cheap. You could use Govee temperature sensors and such, but they're not cheap either. Um, it's really going to be kind of figuring it out. I currently don't use the thermostat. I use a heat gun to figure out what the temperatures are like. And for on a budget setup, you could do that, but to make it easier, use a thermostat. And I make my life a little hard. Misting. I picked the Zoom Ed Reptile. Realistically, um, you could just mist the enclosure twice a day. This is to provide humidity in drinking areas. Again, a paludarium would work well. Also, you should probably give them a water bowl regardless so that they can soak. Um, Zoom Ed Reptile isn't too expensive at $62.99. There are some cheaper options out there on like Amazon and stuff, but I wanted to give you kind of the standard. All these videos I do, when I give you a price point, I'm giving you what I can 100% or 90% say works well and um, is from reputable brands, as opposed to, oh, you can get a $30 one off Amazon, but I don't know how good it is. I'll be testing some, so I might do a video on that later. But $62.99 gives your, I would put it on whatever its lowest setting is, because, or you could even, here's what I heard, is you could even use a spray bottle and just spray it once in the morning, once at night. Give them a water bowl so that they have water from there. That will keep the humidity where they want it to be, which I believe is 70 to 80%. Should have included that. Substrate, we're going with plantation soil once again. Um, give you your tropical terrarium. It can, I kept the turtle one. It can encourage burrowing behavior. I don't know how much garter snakes really burrow, but add cocoa coir and sphagnum moss if you want to add nutrients, make it all bioactive. Add springtails, isopods, all that ilk. But pretty cheap substrate. I think it would work well with the garter snake. It keeps the humidity warm. Decor. So you want to provide plentiful hiding spots along with a humid hide with sphagnum moss. So I'd put in some spiderwood, driftwood, just as kind of like a climbing area that if it wants to climb, it can. Then large cork rounds you can use as its. You can combine a few of these to make a humid hide with sphagnum moss. There's other decor options. You can do bigger driftwood. You can do rocks, fake rocks, things like that. But here's two that I've suggested. Feeding. So there's really three options to go with feeding. Also, I bet you could feed them dubias, silkworms, waxworms, um, superworms. But these are your like kind of staples. And you can go one of three ways, or you can do a mix of earthworms are pretty standard for this species. You actually can give them only earthworms. It's your best option for regular feeding because earthworms are cheap, and you feed them twice a week. Twice a week, give them earthworms. Like probably one to two, maybe three earthworms. Guppies or minnows, not goldfish. If they're your primary food source, feed every 5 to 6. And if you have a paludarium, you can just keep them stocked in that paludarium. They're a great enrichment source. Um, yeah, you can put them in the water dish if you so desire. Not having a paludarium, these guys will work great. And if you have a guppy aquarium, they breed quickly, so you can probably cut down on cost with guppies. And if you really want to feed your garter snake mice, feed them pinky mice. Feed once a week. Do not feed your snake full adult mice. as garter snakes have a tendency to trying to eat things that are too big for them. And I've seen videos where mice have killed garter snakes, dead mice, where a garter snake will try and swallow it and it will just get stuck. Or um, again, it's just not. It's not what you want. You want there to be no risk of what you're feeding your animal to kill it. So I would say stay away from adult mice. You can maybe give um, chicks every once in a while. You could give quail eggs is another one that would work, but just keep them small. I think an earthworm and guppy diet, if you don't want to risk anything, um, is a great option. Um, Earthworms and guppies are both readily available and cheaper than pinky mice, so just go for one of those options. Upfront cost. Um, so we're going to go with the cheaper option. So we're going on the 175 3 by 18 by 12 reptile system zone 2 basking lamp with the bowl with the fixture, the mixture, 4 things of plantation soil. We decided no decor, but you will need decor. Total of 383.42. So with any decor, $400. Again, you could go cheaper on some of this stuff, like the Mister. Um, but garter snakes can make for an easy no mouse snake. Um, we've got one on this list that does like mice. I'll probably do that one last. Um, so we've got 3 on the list who you can completely feed without giving a single mouse, which is great. Really exciting. But garter snakes are a great no mouse snake, relatively inexpensive. Most of the snakes you find, I think garter snakes are going to be like 20, $30. Try and get them captive bred, but you know, it, I understand that they might be more expensive, but it is definitely you're going to get a better animal. Um, but I'll leave that to you to decide how you feel about captive versus wild caught. I'm personally not as opposed to wild caught as a lot of other reptile YouTubers. Um, Only if you do it well with like if you're introducing wild caught with already captive population, you have to quarantine. You don't know what that wild caught has. But the argument of, well, we shouldn't be taking wild animals, that argument I find weak because wild animals are going to die much faster than uh, captive animals on the most part. If you give a wild animal good care, it will live longer in your care than it would in the wild, almost assuredly. But you have to give good care. And that's what these videos are for, is to help you make sure that my videos aren't the only ones you watch either. Other people have experience keeping these snakes. Take their advice over mine. This is just based off care guides I've looked at. There was something else I was going to say. Yes, cohabbing these snakes is actually a decent idea. Garter snakes live in small groups, except during mating season where they live in very large groups. You can look that up on your own. So if you just kept more than one, you're going to have to go that 4 by 2 by 2 or larger. But for fun, you could do that. But leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what I may have gotten wrong, what has been your experience keeping garter snakes. I think they're a beautiful snake, but I'll see you in the next episode with our next snake for people who maybe don't like snakes. And I'll see you later.